She looked at him and saw a liability. She looked at his frayed cuffs, his tired eyes, and the way he held his cap in his hands, and she saw a number on a spreadsheet that she could delete to save a few pennies. But when the CEO of a multi-million-dollar logistics empire fired a struggling single dad, she made a calculation error that no computer could predict. She didn't realize that the man she was discarding like trash was the linchpin holding her entire world together. Have you ever been treated like you were invisible? Have you ever given your blood, sweat, and tears to a job, staying late, missing family dinners, and sacrificing your own well-being only to be told that you are obsolete? For Terrence, a widower trying to keep the heat on for his 7-year-old daughter, this wasn't just a bad day at the office. It was the moment his life fell apart. It was the moment he had to choose between his dignity and his survival. But the universe has a strange way of balancing the scales. Sometimes karma doesn't take years. Sometimes it takes exactly 12 minutes. Because 12 minutes after Terrence walked out into the freezing Chicago winter with his life in a cardboard box, the machinery inside the tower screamed, the systems failed, and suddenly, with millions of dollars on the line and investors in the elevator, the woman who ruined his life had to run out into the snow to beg him to save hers. Stick around. You are going to want to see this. This is the story of how a useless employee became the most important man in the room, and why you should never, ever burn a bridge you might need to cross to get home. Welcome back to True Black Tales. Today we are taking you to the wind-swept, freezing streets of Chicago, into the high-pressure, glass-walled world of Apex Logistics. This isn't just a story about business. It is a story about the collision between the cold, hard logic of corporate greed and the warm, unbreakable beating heart of a father's love. We live in a world that loves to automate everything. We love to replace people with algorithms. But today's story is a reminder that there are some things, like loyalty, experience, and the intuition of a good man, that cannot be replaced by a line of code. By the end of this video, you will understand that the most valuable asset in any building isn't the technology, it's the humanity. The disaster didn't announce itself with an explosion. Real disasters rarely do. They start with a whisper. They start with a hum that sounds just a little off. It was 1 p.m. on a Tuesday in mid-February. If you know Chicago, you know that February isn't just a month, it's a test of endurance. Outside the towering glass walls of Apex Logistics headquarters, Lake Michigan was a churning, angry soup of gray ice. The wind was howling off the water, whipping wet, heavy snow against the windows. It was the kind of cold that hurts to breathe, the kind that seeps through the cracks in your window frames and settles in your bones. But inside the executive suite on the 42nd floor, the weather didn't matter. Here, the air was perfectly climate-controlled, smelling faintly of expensive roasted coffee and crisp linen. It was a sanctuary of wealth and efficiency.
Vanessa, the 32-year-old CEO of Apex, stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city. From up here, the cars looked like toys. The people looked like ants. Vanessa was young for her position, and she knew it. She had inherited the role 3 months ago after a messy board shakeup, and ever since she had been fighting a war on 2 fronts. The board of directors didn't trust her because of her age, and the employees didn't trust her because she was an outsider. She wore her authority like a suit of armor, cold, sharp, and impenetrable. She believed that emotions were inefficiencies. She believed that the only truth that mattered was the bottom line. Today was the most important day of her career. In exactly 2 hours, a delegation of high-profile investors from Tokyo was landing at O'Hare International Airport. They were coming to sign a contract that would secure Apex's future for the next decade. They were coming to inspect the new fully automated sorting facility, the crown jewel of Vanessa's tenure. If they liked what they saw, the stock would soar. If they saw a glitch, if they saw a delay, the company would tank, and Vanessa would be out on the street before the ink was dry. She turned away from the window and looked at Robert. Robert was her new chief technology officer. He was a man in his late 20s who confused arrogance with competence. He was wearing a slim-fit Italian suit and was currently lounging on Vanessa's leather sofa, tapping away on a tablet with a smug grin on his face. "Stop pacing, Vanessa," Robert said, not even looking up. "You're going to wear a hole in the carpet. The efficiency ratings are through the roof. The new AI system, the Sentinel as I like to call it, is flawless. We cut the legacy staff, we streamlined the protocols. You're going to look like a genius." Vanessa took a sip of sparkling water, the bubbles stinging her throat. "I need it to be perfect, Robert. Not good, perfect. I just had the uncomfortable conversation with the legacy system specialist. He's gone. His access is revoked. We are flying without a net now." Robert scoffed, finally looking up. "Good riddance. That guy was a dinosaur. He was writing code on terminals that belong in a museum. We don't need nets anymore, Vanessa. We have the cloud. Out with the old, in with the new. That's progress." Vanessa nodded, trying to convince herself. "Progress," she whispered. And that was the moment the universe decided to intervene. That was the moment the silence broke. It started as a vibration. Vanessa felt it in the soles of her feet first, a low rhythmic shudder, like a subway train passing deep underground. But they were on the 42nd floor. There were no trains up here. She frowned, placing her hand on her mahogany desk. The crystal water glass was trembling. Ripples were forming on the surface of the water, concentric circles radiating outward. "Robert," she said, her voice tight, "do you feel that?" Robert frowned, looking up from his tablet. "Feel what? It's probably just the wind buffeting the building. It's a blizzard out there." "No," said Vanessa, backing away from the desk. "That's not the wind." The vibration grew. It deepened into a groan. It sounded like the building itself was in pain. And then came the sound that would haunt Vanessa's nightmares for years to come. It was a screech, a high-pitched metal-on-metal tearing sound that rose up through the floor vents. It was the sound of unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. It was loud, so loud that Vanessa had to cover her ears. The lights in the office flickered. Once, twice, then they surged, burning blindingly bright for a second before dimming to a sickly emergency yellow. The red phone on Vanessa's desk, the dedicated line to the warehouse floor manager, began to flash. It didn't ring, it just flashed, a frantic, silent strobe light of panic. Vanessa grabbed the phone. "Report! What is happening?" The voice on the other end was screaming over a cacophony of sirens. "Ma'am, the belt! The main belt! It's seizing! It's tearing itself apart!" Vanessa dropped the phone and ran to the window that overlooked the massive warehouse floor below. Usually the floor was a symphony of motion. It was a ballet of conveyor belts, robotic arms, and sorting chutes, moving thousands of packages a minute in perfect harmony. But now it was a battlefield. The main conveyor belt, the spine of the entire operation, a piece of machinery the size of a football field, had slammed to a violent halt. But the feeder belts behind it hadn't stopped. Thousands of packages scheduled for same-day delivery were piling up. They were crashing into each other, spilling off the sides, raining down onto the concrete floor like a waterfall of cardboard and plastic. And in the center of the room, at the main junction box for Sector 4, sparks were flying. Massive, angry showers of blue and orange sparks were cascading down, illuminating the darkened warehouse. "Robert!" Vanessa screamed, turning on him. "Fix it! What did you do?" Robert's smugness was gone. His face was the color of old paper. He was frantically tapping his tablet, his fingers slipping on the glass. I don't know. The dashboard is red. Everything is red. The system isn't responding." "The investors are in the air," Vanessa yelled, grabbing him by the lapels of his expensive suit. "If that floor isn't moving in 90 minutes, we are dead. Get the system back online." "I'm trying." Robert's voice cracked, hitting an octave of pure panic. "It's the update, the Sentinel update. It tried to overwrite the hydraulic protocols for the heavy lifting arm in Sector 4. "So revert it," Vanessa yelled.
"I can't," Robert cried, sweat beading on his forehead and dripping onto his nose. "I don't have the keys. The system didn't recognize the old hardware. It thinks the hydraulic pumps are a foreign entity. It thinks the machinery is being hacked. It's the red protocol." "Override it, Robert. You are the CTO." "I don't have the keys," Robert shouted, backing away from her. "The lockdown is encrypted. It's asking for a specific manual handshake sequence, a master key designed to bridge the old system and the new one." Vanessa stared at the massive wall of monitors in her office. A dialog box was flashing in the center of the chaos. It read, "Critical error. Access denied. Authorization required. Architect level."
"Who is the architect?" Vanessa demanded, her voice trembling with rage. "Who wrote the code for the hydraulics?" Robert checked the metadata on the screen. He swallowed hard. He looked like he wanted to vomit. "The user ID is T-Bones," he whispered. Vanessa felt the blood drain from her face. The room suddenly felt very, very cold, colder than the blizzard outside. "Who is T-Bones, Robert? Speak up." "That's Terrence," Robert said, his voice barely audible. "That's the system specialist, the guy you fired, the guy who walked out of this office 12 minutes ago." Vanessa closed her eyes, and the memory of what she had done crashed into her. It wasn't a blur, it was crystal clear. She remembered every word. It had been 20 minutes prior. The office had been quiet then. Terrence had stood in the doorway. He was a big man, 36 years old, with the broad shoulders of someone who had carried the weight of the world for a long time. He was wearing a dress shirt that was clean and pressed, but if you looked closely, and Vanessa hadn't bothered to look closely, you could see the collar was frayed. You could see the careful stitching where a button had been re-sewn with the wrong color thread. He held a worn leather cap in his hands, squeezing it nervously. His eyes were dark and deep, holding a permanent shadow of exhaustion, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix because it comes from the soul, not the body. "Miss Vanessa," Terrence had said. His voice was deep, respectful, a baritone that usually commanded attention, but today it was humble. "I know I was 20 minutes late this morning. I apologize. The radiator in my apartment building burst again. There was water everywhere. I had to make sure my daughter, Chloe, was safe with the neighbor before I could leave. It won't happen again." Vanessa hadn't even looked up from her tablet. She was reviewing the quarterly budget. To her, Terrence wasn't a father. He wasn't a widower. He wasn't a loyal employee of 10 years. He was a number. He was a salary of $65,000 a year plus benefits that she could cut to make the margin look 0.2% better for the Tokyo investors. "This isn't just about this morning, Terrence," she had said, her voice devoid of warmth. She flipped a page on her screen. "We are modernizing Apex. We've installed the new automated sorting grid. Your role as the legacy systems lead is, well, it's obsolete." Terrence had blinked. The word hung in the air. Obsolete. Like an old phone, like a broken chair. "Robert assures me the new cloud-based AI handles everything. We are moving forward, and unfortunately, you are part of the past." Terrence took a step forward. Panic flared in his chest, not for himself, but for the 7-year-old waiting for him at home. "Miss Vanessa, with all due respect, the AI is a blanket system. It works on the digital side, but it doesn't talk to the old hydraulic belts in Sector 4. I wrote the bridge code for that myself 6 years ago. It's a custom language. It's a handshake between the analog pumps and the digital servers. If you disconnect me or that code, the handshake fails." Vanessa had sighed, tapping her manicured fingernail against the glass desk. Click, click, click. The sound of impatience. "Robert says the update is already pushed," she said, finally looking him in the eye. Her blue eyes were cold, piercing. "The system is running at 98% efficiency. We don't need bridge code anymore. We need to cut costs before the investors land. This is business, Terrence. It's not personal." "It is personal to me," Terrence had whispered. It wasn't a threat, it was a plea. "I need this job. My wife, she passed away 18 months ago, a cerebral hemorrhage. It was sudden.
We're still paying off the emergency room bills. The insurance didn't cover the specialist. Chloe needs braces next month. I'm the only one she has." He swallowed his pride. It tasted like ash. "I will take a pay cut. I will move to the night shift. Just, please, don't let me go." Vanessa felt a twinge of discomfort in her gut, a momentary flicker of humanity, but she had shoved it down. She had been taught that empathy was a weakness in the boardroom. "I'm sorry for your loss, Terrence. Truly," she said, using the same tone as she would order a sandwich. "But the decision is made. The severance package includes 2 weeks of pay. We need your badge and your access key immediately." The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Terrence stood there. He thought about the heating bill sitting on his kitchen counter, the bold red letters saying "Final Notice." He thought about Chloe, who was 7 and still crawled into his bed at night because she missed her mom. He thought about the promise he made to his wife's memory, that he would keep their little girl safe. "You're making a mistake," Terrence said quietly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his keycard. He placed it gently on the glass desk. He didn't throw it, he didn't slam it. He maintained his dignity, because that was the only thing he had left. "The machine has a heartbeat, ma'am. You can't just replace it." "I'll take my chances," Vanessa replied, turning her attention back to her screen. "Good luck, Terrence." Terrence had stood tall. He nodded once, turned, and walked out. He went to his cubicle, placed a framed photo of a smiling woman and a little girl into a cardboard box, grabbed his stapler, and took the elevator down. Back in the present, the alarm was still blaring. The warehouse was paralyzed. The screeching of the metal had stopped, replaced by an ominous, dead silence. Vanessa opened her eyes. The memory faded, replaced by the terrifying reality. "Did Terrence leave the building?" she snapped. "I don't know," Robert stammered, looking useless. "He walked out 10, maybe 12 minutes ago?" Vanessa didn't wait. She didn't grab her purse. She didn't check her hair. She kicked off her high heels under the desk. She grabbed her long wool coat and ran. She bypassed the executive elevator. It was too slow. She shoved open the stairwell door and sprinted down 32 flights. No, but she ran down 3 flights to the parking garage access, realizing halfway down that Terrence wouldn't have a spot in the executive garage. She burst into the lobby, startling the security guard who was sipping coffee. "Did Terrence leave?" she shouted, her voice echoing off the marble walls. "Yes, ma'am," the guard said, eyes wide. "Just walked out the front door. He parks in the overflow lot, the back lot." Vanessa pushed through the revolving doors and into the storm. The cold hit her like a physical blow. It was violent. The wind screamed, whipping snow into her eyes, blinding her instantly. The temperature was 5 degrees below zero. She was wearing thin stockings and no shoes. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. She scanned the parking lot. It was a sea white. Most employees parked in the heated garage, but the contract workers and the lower-level staff parked in the back lot, near the chain-link fence, where it was free. She ran. Her feet were numb within seconds. The ice cut into her soles. She slipped, falling hard under her knees, tearing her stockings. She scrambled up, ignoring the pain. She spotted it, way in the back, a rusted, dark blue sedan. It was an old model, maybe 15 years old, the kind of car you pray starts every morning. The exhaust pipe was sputtering thick gray smoke. The reverse lights flared red. He was leaving. "Terrence!" she screamed. The wind tore the name from her lips and swallowed it. The car began to back up, tires crunching on the snow. Vanessa ran harder. Her lungs burned. She felt like her chest was going to explode. She ran right into the path of the car, slamming her frozen hands onto the hood. The car jerked to a halt. The brakes squealed. Through the windshield, coated in a layer of half-melted ice, Terrence stared at her. His expression was unreadable. He looked shocked but guarded. Slowly, painfully slowly, he rolled down the window. A blast of warm air escaped the car. It smelled of old pine air freshener and fast food wrappers. It smelled like a struggle. "Miss Vanessa?" he asked. His voice was calm, contrasting sharply with her hysteria. "If this is about the stapler in my box, I can give it back." The system crashed. Vanessa gasped. She was shaking uncontrollably, her teeth chattering. "Sector 4, the hydraulics locked down. Robert says it needs an override code. The architect key." Terrence looked at her. He looked at her bare feet in the snow. He looked at the desperation in her eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't look triumphant. He just looked tired. "The red protocol," he said simply. "I told you, the new system doesn't speak the old language. It thinks the belt is an intruder. It thinks it's being attacked." "You have to come back," Vanessa said, her voice rising in panic. "You have to fix it, right now." Terrence looked away. He stared at the gray horizon, at the bleak winter sky. "I'm fired, ma'am. I don't have clearance. My badge is on your desk. And honestly, I need to go pick up Chloe. She has a recital at school at 2:30. She's playing the violin. I promised her I wouldn't miss it. I missed the last two because I was working late fixing your servers. I won't miss this one." He reached for the gear shift. He was going to drive away. Vanessa gripped the door frame. Her fingers were turning blue. "I will pay you," she pleaded. "Triple your hourly rate. Consultant fee, $10,000. Just name your price, Terrence."
Terrence stopped. He turned back to her, and for the first time there was fire in his eyes. "This isn't about money anymore," he said, his voice low and intense. "You looked me in the eye and told me I was obsolete. You didn't see a person. You saw a line item. You saw trash." He took a breath, his voice trembling slightly. "My wife died in a hospital bed because we couldn't afford the specialist in time. We waited for approval from an insurance company that treated us like numbers. I held her hand while she faded away, and I swore on her grave that I would never let anyone treat me or my daughter like we didn't matter again. I am not a number, Vanessa. I am a father." Vanessa froze. The raw honesty of his words cut deeper than the cold wind. It stripped her bare. She looked past him, into the passenger seat. There was a bright pink backpack, and taped to the dashboard was a drawing done in crayon. It was a stick figure of a man holding a little girl's hand with the words "World's Best Dad" written in shaky block letters. It was a sanctuary. This beat-up, rusty car was a fortress of love that this man had built to protect his daughter, and Vanessa was the villain trying to tear it down. For the first time in years, the corporate mask slipped. Vanessa wasn't a CEO in that moment. She wasn't a boss. She was just a frightened woman realizing the magnitude of her arrogance. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The tears that pricked her eyes were hot and sudden. "I didn't know. I didn't bother to ask. You're right. I treated you like a number. I was wrong." She took a breath, shivering violently. Her lips were turning purple. "Terrence, please, not for the company, not for me, but because I am begging you. If this audit fails, if the investors walk away, 300 people in that warehouse lose their jobs. The warehouse staff, the drivers, the janitors, Mrs. Higgins at the front desk. They all have families too. They have heating bills and kids who need braces. If I fail, they fall with me." Terrence looked at the steering wheel. He gripped it until his knuckles turned the color of ash. He looked at the clock on the dashboard. 1:15 p.m. He was a good man. That was his problem. That was his strength. He had always been a good man. Before we see what Terrence decides, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever poured your heart out to a boss or a company that didn't care about you? If you've ever felt that sting of being undervalued, hit the like button for Terrence right now. Let's show him he's not alone. Terrence let out a long breath, watching the snow melt on the windshield. He looked at the pink backpack. "How long until the investors get here?" asked Vanessa, her teeth chattering. 80 minutes, she replied. Terrence said, "Get in," unlocking the passenger door. Vanessa scrambled into the car. The heat hit her instantly, stinging her frozen skin. Terrence didn't say a word. He shifted the car into drive and navigated through the snow toward the loading dock entrance.
The drive took only a minute, but the silence was heavy. Vanessa looked around the car. She saw a stack of medical bills stuffed into the side door pocket. She saw the empty coffee cup. She saw the life of a man who was trying so hard to hold it all together. What is her name?" Vanessa asked softly. "Chloe," Terrence said, keeping his eyes on the road. "Her name is Chloe." "She draws well," Vanessa whispered, looking at the picture. "She draws like her mother," Terrence said, his voice thick with emotion. "Her mother was an artist before she got sick." They pulled up to the service entrance. Terrence put the car in park. He took off his own coat, a heavy, worn wool jacket that looked like it had seen 10 winters, and handed it to Vanessa. "Put this on," he said. "You're freezing." Vanessa hesitated, then took it. It was heavy. It smelled like sawdust and peppermint. It was warm. They rushed into the building, taking the service elevator up. When the doors opened to the server room, the chaos was deafening. Alarms were blaring. Robert was pacing back and forth, sweating through his expensive suit, yelling at a junior tech. "Thank heavens," Robert exhaled when he saw them. Then his eyes narrowed as he pointed a finger at Terrence. You sabotaged this. You put a kill switch in the code, didn't you? You did this to leverage a raise." Terrence didn't even look at him. He walked straight past him, moving with a purpose that silenced the room. He went to the main terminal, shoved Robert's tablet aside, and sat down. "One more word, Robert," Vanessa said, her voice icy, "and you are walking home in the snow without a coat." Robert shut his mouth. Terrence cracked his knuckles. He looked at the screen. It was a mess of red error messages. The new AI, the Sentinel, was fighting the old hardware like a body rejecting a transplant. His fingers flew across the keyboard. He didn't use the fancy graphical interface with the colorful buttons that Robert loved. He opened a command line, a black screen with green text. It looked ancient. It looked like the Matrix. "The new AI tried to force a digital reboot on the hydraulic pumps," Terrence explained as he typed, his eyes scanning the lines of code cascading down the screen. "The pumps are analog triggers. They run on voltage spikes, not binary code. They don't understand what the AI is telling them to do. The system panicked." "Can you bypass it?" Vanessa asked, standing behind him, watching the genius she had dismissed as outdated. "I'm not bypassing it," Terrence said, his voice focused. "I'm introducing them. I'm writing a translator script. I have to teach the AI to speak voltage. It's a handshake." For 20 minutes, the only sound in the room was the rapid, rhythmic clacking of keys. It was a duel. Terrence versus the machine. Vanessa watched him. She saw the focus in his eyes. She saw the years of experience. She realized that legacy didn't mean old. It meant foundational. It meant he knew where the bodies were buried. He knew the ghost in the machine. "We have 40 minutes until the investors land. The system is still locked. The belt is dead."
"Almost there," Terrence muttered. Sweat was trickling down his temple. "Come on, talk to each other. Don't fight it." He remembered his wife. He remembered the night she died, how she told him to be strong for Chloe. "Be the bridge, Terrence," she had said. "You always hold things together." He typed one final command string. It was complex. It was elegant. "Execute Bridge Protocol Alpha." He hit the Enter key with a definitive snap. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The room held its breath. Then a groan echoed through the building, a deep mechanical sigh, then a hiss of air like a giant beast waking up from a nightmare. On the wall of monitors, the flashing red warning lights turned amber. Then, one by one, they flipped to a steady, solid green. System online. Efficiency 100%. Through the glass wall, they watched the massive conveyor belts shudder, the robotic arms reset, and then smoothly, silently, the belt began to hum. The packages started moving again. The sparks stopped. The chaos ordered itself into a symphony. "It works," Robert whispered, staring at the screen in disbelief. It's actually running smoother than before."
Terrence sat back in the chair. He let out a breath. He closed the command window. It'll hold, but don't run a firmware update on Sector 4 again without checking the voltage parameters. And tell the AI to be polite next time. He stood up, picking up his leather cap from the desk. He checked his watch. 1:50 p.m. I have to go. Traffic is going to be bad. I can't be late for the violin solo. Vanessa stepped forward. The room was quiet now, the hum of the machinery a soothing backdrop. Terrence stopped, his hand on the doorframe. He looked back, expecting her to ask for the coat back, or maybe just say a quick thanks. You're not fired, Vanessa said firmly. She turned to Robert. She looked at him with a clarity she hadn't possessed an hour ago. Robert, give me your badge. Robert's jaw dropped. Excuse me? You didn't do your due diligence, Vanessa said calmly but dangerously. You told me the legacy staff was redundant. You risked the entire company on a gamble because you were too arrogant to understand the old system. You almost cost 300 people their livelihoods. Pack your things, you're done. Robert spluttered, red-faced, realizing his golden parachute had just been cut. You can't do this. Security will escort you out, Vanessa said, turning her back on him. She faced Terrence. Her expression softened. She looked at the man who had saved her. Terrence, I want to offer you the Director of Operations role. It comes with a significant salary increase, double what you were making, full benefits, and I want to cover the retroactive medical bills you mentioned. All of them. I'll have the company cut a check for the debt today. Terrence looked at her. He saw the regret in her face. It was genuine. He thought about the debt that was crushing him. He thought about the car that barely started. He thought about being able to pay for the best orthodontist for Chloe. But he didn't jump. He paused. He knew he had leverage now. Terrence said slowly, I appreciate the offer, Miss Vanessa, but I can't be director. Not if it means missing Chloe's recitals. Not if it means 80-hour weeks. I won't be an absent father. She's all I have. I promised her I would be there.
Vanessa smiled. It was the first real, warm smile she had worn in months. Then you won't, she promised. 40 hours, strictly. Flexible schedule. You can bring her here after school if you need to. There's an empty office next to mine, Robert's old office. We can put a desk in there for her to do homework. We'll make it work. I need you, Terrence. The company needs you. Terrence let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for a year and a half. He nodded. Okay, he said, a small smile touching his lips. Okay, we have a deal, but I really have to leave right now. Go, Vanessa said. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Drive safe. As Terrence walked out, Vanessa walked to the window. She watched him jog across the snowy parking lot to his beat-up car. She watched him drive away to be a father. When the investors walked in an hour later, they praised the seamless efficiency of the facility. They marveled at the technology. They signed the contract. Vanessa accepted their compliments, but she knew the truth. The company wasn't saved by money. It wasn't saved by the AI. It wasn't saved by a ruthless business strategy. It was saved by a single dad in a frayed suit driving a rusted sedan who just wanted to make the world safe enough for his little girl. That day changed everything at Apex Logistics. The culture shifted. People were no longer just numbers. They were partners. And every day at 3 p.m., a little girl with a pink backpack would walk into the director's office to do her homework, right next to the man who saved the company. For the first time, Vanessa understood that the most valuable asset on her spreadsheet was the one thing she couldn't put a price tag on: humanity. Terrence knew his worth, and he wasn't afraid to walk away when it wasn't recognized. Do you think more companies need to understand that family comes first? If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder of their worth. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more true black tales. Until next time, remember, you are more than your job title. You are someone's everything.